On March 2026, Operation Epic Fury, Tehran has just dropped its latest propaganda bomb, falsely claiming their air defenses shot down a US F-15E Strike Eagle near the Strait of Hormuz. But US Central Command has immediately stepped in with a brutal reality check. The truth: 0 American fighters have been lost. Allied forces have flown over 8,000 combat sorties, establishing absolute uncontested air dominance over Iran. As Admiral Cooper recently stated, the Iranian regime is in complete desperation mode, blindly launching one-way attack drones that are being systematically crushed. Stay locked in as we break down exactly how the legendary F-15E is dismantling Tehran's war machine. But first, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Titan Mechanics and ring the bell so you never miss a critical tactical briefing. Let's look at the intel. U.S. air power were spearheaded by the F-15E, the B-1B Lancer, and the F-35 Lightning II, has executed its most devastating wave of strikes yet. But before we look at the actual battle damage, let's review this supposed shoot-down footage circulating on X. The IRGC claims this is an American Strike Eagle getting painted and destroyed by a surface-to-air missile. Let's break this down. The tracking UI looks vaguely similar to older SAM radars, but look at the target aircraft. It is flying perfectly straight and level. Any combat aviator will tell you that the millisecond your radar warning receiver lights up with a SAM lock, you are pulling aggressive evasive maneuvers. You do not just cruise in a straight line waiting to die. That is the first massive red flag. Then comes the explosion. And there is no visible inbound missile, and the entire sequence looks heavily AI generated. It is a desperate digital fabrication from a regime that is losing the physical war. Now, let's look at reality. CENTCOM recently declassified satellite imagery of a massive production plant in Qom. This facility was a primary hub for manufacturing gas turbine engines and critical components for the IRGC's attack drones. The before photo from March 6 shows a fully operational complex. 3 days later, the imagery reveals utter devastation. The F-15E has systematically leveled the primary structures. Interestingly, there are dozens of smaller, seemingly civilian facilities surrounding the blast zone. The IRGC frequently hides its assets in these dual-use warehouses, pretending they are just civilian boat manufacturing plants. But we know the truth. The IRGC relies heavily on mobile launchers, hiding kamikaze drones in civilian vehicles and driving them to concealed coastal launch points. It is a complex targeting problem. But the F-15E, combined with MQ-9 Reapers and F-35s, is actively neutralizing that threat before the drones ever leave the rails. CENTCOM officially shut down the propaganda, stating clearly that despite 8,000 combat flight hours, not a single US fighter has been shot down. With the global geopolitical landscape feeling like a powder keg, from the war in Iran to political turmoil across the globe, navigating the sheer volume of combat updates can be overwhelming. That is exactly why we rely on ground news to cut through the fog of war. Ground News is a powerful platform that aggregates thousands of global stories, instantly analyzing the political bias, reliability, and corporate ownership of every single source. Take the recent breaking story about President Trump threatening to deploy Marines to seize Karg Island, Iran's massive oil export hub. Ground News shows us that this massive escalation is being covered by over 90 outlets, primarily from the center and the right, with a 72% high reliability rating. You can instantly see how different outlets frame the exact same tactical event. Left-leaning sites emphasize fears of a global economic meltdown, while right-leaning outlets focus entirely on the kinetic threat and geopolitical pressure. My personal favorite tool is the blind spot feature, which highlights critical global events that one side of the political spectrum is completely ignoring. No matter where you sit, you are getting a filtered version of the battlefield. Ground News gives you the omniscient view. Check out the link in our description or scan the QR code on screen for 40% off their unlimited Vantage plan, bringing the cost of total situational awareness down to the price of a cup of coffee. Try it out and let's get back to the battlefield. Looking at the southern coast, it is infuriating to see how the Ayatollah and the mullahs have grifted hundreds of billions of dollars from the Iranian people. Instead of building civilian infrastructure, they have littered the coastline near the Strait of Hormuz with dual-use military warehouses and explosive staging areas. Everything along this coast is oriented exclusively toward threatening global shipping. We are seeing massive staging areas for unmanned underwater vehicles, or UUVs, designed to be quietly slipped into the Gulf. We are seeing fleets of small civilian speedboats that the IRGC forcefully commandeers. They wire these boats with high explosives, turning them into asymmetric one-way attack craft, often threatening the families of the drivers to force them into suicide missions against oil tankers. But the US? Military has a definitive answer to that threat. Fleets of A-10 Warthogs and AH-64 Apaches are actively patrolling those waters, dealing with these fast attack swarms with extreme lethal prejudice. And that brings us to a massive breaking geopolitical development. President Trump has officially ordered the Department of War to temporarily halt all kinetic strikes against Iranian energy infrastructure, citing highly productive back-channel talks aimed at ending the conflict. Trump announced a strict 5-day pause on energy strikes, stating that the US and Iran have engaged in in-depth, constructive conversations regarding a total resolution of hostilities. However, he made it abundantly clear that this pause is entirely subject to the continued success of these negotiations. But here is the critical detail. Even while begging for talks, Iran is still desperately firing isolated drones and missiles at neighboring Gulf states, hoping for a lucky hit. It is the definition of diplomatic desperation, by hitting the big red button while simultaneously asking for a ceasefire. We need your help to push this analysis through the algorithm. If you are finding this tactical breakdown valuable, drop a like right now and share this video with your squad. Now back to the strategic overview. While Washington is honoring the 5-day pause on energy grids, they are absolutely not letting up on the IRGC's military assets. The US has intensified its surgical strikes against mobile launch sites and hardened weapons bunkers along the southern coast. This is a masterclass in negotiation leverage. The US is essentially saying, we will talk to you, but we are going to systematically eradicate your ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz while we do it. You will have absolutely no leverage, and we will dictate the terms from a position of absolute uncontested strength. We are seeing secondary explosions lighting up the night sky across Tehran as Shahed kamikaze assembly plants and fueling depots are continuously vaporized. Drone launch rates are at historic lows because these assets are being found, fixed, and finished before they can even power up. And the F-15E Strike Eagle is the absolute workhorse of this surgical campaign, frequently operating in hunter-killer teams alongside B-1B Lancers and F-35s. The Strike Eagle is arguably the most survivable conventional strike platform on the planet. Powered by twin Pratt and Whitney F-100-PW-229 engines, it can push past Mach 1.3 to outrun interceptors and aggressively defeat incoming surface-to-air threats. Like we analyzed earlier, a real Strike Eagle pilot reacting to a radar lock is pulling heavy G's and dropping countermeasures, not flying in a straight line for an IRGC propaganda video. The Strike Eagle's payload capacity is legendary. It is carrying massive arsenals of precision-guided munitions to instantly neutralize pop-up mobile launchers. Specifically, the GBU-54 Laser Joint Direct Attack Munition. But this weapon is a tactical masterpiece. The pilot can paint a moving target with a laser, but if the aircraft has to suddenly break off to defeat a SAM launch, the bomb's internal GPS simply remembers the absolute last known coordinate of that laser reflection and guides itself perfectly to the impact point. Add in the Strike Eagle's APG-82 AESA radar, which maps the entire battle space with microscopic precision, and you realize why the IRGC's air defenses are functionally blind and helpless against it. This brings us to the overarching strategic analysis. Iran's military is fundamentally collapsing under the sheer weight of American air power. Their drone network is gutted, their navy is sitting on the bottom of the Gulf, and their air force is permanently grounded. The US and Israel maintain absolute air superiority over the entire nation. This 5-day energy pause is classic 4D chess. It is diplomacy backed by overwhelming, apocalyptic kinetic force. Publicly, the regime claims they can fight for years. Privately, the mullahs are desperately trying to figure out how to survive the week. The US is executing a brilliant phased campaign. Phase 1. Annihilate the mullah's conventional military capability. Phase 2. Permanently secure and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, but Phase 3 is the ultimate endgame. Empowering the Iranian Free People, or IFP, to finally rise up and take their country back from a weakened, bleeding regime. The Iranian people have watched the IRGC get dismantled. They are furious over the recent executions of innocent civilians, like the tragic hanging of a 19-year-old wrestler by the regime's corrupt judges. Internal intelligence suggests the civilian population is primed to revolt. The Pentagon does not need to deploy massive conventional ground armies and walk into IRGC-IED traps. The strategy is to let American air power break the cage, as perhaps utilizing Tier 1 special mission units like SEAL Team 6 or Delta Force to conduct surgical decapitation strikes against the remaining mullahs and then simply step back as the Iranian Free People reclaim their nation. Takes the 5-day pause. Will diplomacy actually succeed, or are we about to witness an unprecedented escalation of American air power to forcibly open the Strait of Hormuz? Sound off in the comments below. Do you think the US should deploy Tier 1 operators to finish the regime? Smash that like button, subscribe to Titan Mechanics, and share this intelligence with your squad. We will see you on the next tactical briefing.